So the great thing is this is episode 4. That means we've successfully continued to keep this show going. So that makes me very happy. Hey there, I am Matthew Dykes with Guerilla Media, and this is the Greater Good podcast. And we are a show that tells the untold stories that don't get told about perseverance, positivity, inspiration, hope, all the good stuff that we want to hear, but unfortunately don't always get to hear. But we like to tell the stories about individuals, companies, nonprofits that all come together and work in the community to make a better community to live in and grow with. So I'm joined today by April O'Leary. And April is the owner of O'Leary Publishing. And so we're going to hear all about her stories and what she does and her participation in the community. We're also going to be talking with Amy Bright Gilhuly. Gilhuly. See, I reversed it. I knew I was going to mess that up. And you should never tell yourself you're going to mess up, because then you will, invariably. So she actually, you're the VP at Toastmasters, but you also do you have a marketing company as well?
I do, yes. Amy Bright Creative Marketing and Branding.
So there you have it. We're going to be talking to her about all things marketing and some of the scariest things that people face and how to overcome them, which I was not aware of until I started researching that. So it's going to be fun. So yeah. So hopefully, so stay tuned. You're going to learn a lot of things, and we're looking forward to get into it. So let's go. How about that? So the first question I have, and this is for each of you, we do want to just dig in. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm Amy Bright Gilhuly, and I own, as we said, Amy Bright Creative Marketing and Branding. I help typically small to medium-sized businesses create a message that resonates with their target audience. And I'm very audience-driven because in my other life, when I spin around in a phone booth, I turn into a singer at night. So I'm very familiar with audience appeal and creating messaging that resonates with a designated audience.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm April O'Leary. I'm the founder of O'Leary Publishing. We're an independent book publishing company based in Naples, Florida. We publish nonfiction books for entrepreneurs, visionaries, influencers, people who have a good message to share, who have had some hard things in life happen that they've overcome and they want to pay it forward. So we love to partner with you here in the Greater Good and talking all about good stuff. So thanks for having me.
Hey, we're glad to have you. And thank you guys for taking time out today. What do you think is one of the most, I don't know if it's the biggest misconceptions, or what do you think is the scariest things for people to face when they're trying to reach out and do something creative, like doing a book or like getting up in front of people and singing or speaking? What do you think that is?
I can speak for authors because as someone who started off writing my own first book in 2012, there was this lingering self-doubt. Do I really have anything important to say? Am I really the right person to say it? Aren't there people who are better than me that could say this? Am I really credible? And I think those self-doubt voices that linger in the head are what prevent people from really taking a chance on themselves and therefore being able to help others. So part of our work and working with authors is to help them say, like, you are important. Your voice does matter. Your experience matters. Who you are matters. And what you have to say is going to help somebody. So to me, it's more of a mental challenge than it is anything else.
Mm-hmm. And I think people get caught, whether it's entrepreneurs, most of the people I work with are entrepreneurs, or rebranding an existing business that wasn't doing so well. I think a lot of people get caught in the comparison trap, which brings on, I don't know what came first, the self-doubt or the comparison, but the two are very close cousins.
Right.
And I think many people have fear about how they're going to be judged by others because they're always looking at these great success stories on social media or great success stories on TV interviews or what have you. And I'm not doing that yet, but that's okay. You just have to follow your own path and find your voice and just do what you do best. Find what you're best at and just follow that path.
Yeah, and you guys said something that I think really hits to the heart of the matter. I think that there's fear out there. And unfortunately, the biggest fear, we had a guest on last week that did a movie about the fear from within. And I think that's where that really comes from. Now, is that society putting that on us or because we're so used, and we were talking before the show about how people get doubt and fear because they're afraid of being judged. And so that's why they don't do things. So knowing that that's an issue, what's one of the best ways they can face that? And what's one of the things that you speak to? How do they address that? And how do they start to get past that?
I would say, speaking to comparison, I'll just give you a personal story. Back when I was life coaching, I was young, I was 10 years younger than I am now. I had a lot of self-doubt. I was formerly an at-home mom for 10 years before that. So I didn't have like a lot of professional prowess, maybe that others who had stayed in the workforce at that amount of time had. And so I remember just scouring the internet for like the most successful life coaches and what were they doing and all of this. And there was this lady, Cheryl Richardson, who was one of the best-selling authors with Hay House. And I would just like drool over her website and wish that I was her. And I would come away from that experience feeling really defeated, not empowered. And so I finally made this decision to stop looking across the landscape of other people and who they're doing and just do the best that I could do with the work I had with the people I was working with. So it was really, for me, it was a conscious decision to stop looking for comparisons. And I've really kind of stuck to that ever since, because there's going to always be people who are less skilled than you, and there's going to always be people who are way more skilled, and we're just somewhere on the spectrum. So I guess that was part of my journey.
That doesn't make, and to your point, that doesn't make what you're doing any less valuable, though. Whether someone that's out there is more popular or someone that out there is just, wow, they're crazy, I don't know what they're talking about. Regardless, that shouldn't deter you from wanting to get your message and your skills and your expertise out there, right?
Right. Absolutely. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, is saying where I'm now is better than where I was maybe 5 years ago. I know more things. And so the stuff that I could share now would help someone who's at the place I was at 5 years ago.
Sure.
And so sometimes I think it's just seeing that the small steps we take to become better or learn more are meant to help someone who's a few steps behind us. And maybe someone that's been doing that same thing we're doing for 20 years, they might not be as relevant or as remember those feelings of insecurity that were just a few years ago in your past. So I think that there is a place for everyone to share their message, and that there are people who need to hear what you have to say.
I agree. And I've heard that the definition of courage is feeling afraid, but doing it anyway. And I think that once you experience that, you feel the fear and you actually allow the fear to motivate you and move to a place where you feel confident in your message or confident in your business, then you begin to blossom and it starts to feel normal. It normalizes that fear that motivates you, and you know it's always going to be there. Our brains, we're constantly looking for comfort. Our brains are just created in a way that we're looking for homeostasis, we're looking for comfort. Our brain always wants to go back to that. So the more you build the skill of feeling fear and being courageous and moving forward anyway, the more normal and homeostasis oriented that becomes.
So I've really not heard it explained that way before. That's interesting. So fear is a motivator. And you're right. Fear is absolutely a motivator. It will motivate you right back under the sheets.
Yeah,
that's right.
Or right back in your little corner.
Yes. Allow it to energize you.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting way to look at that. Okay. So you take that fear, flip it on its head, and now it's an empowerment motivator. So you could actually look for fear and be like, okay, so anytime that I'm afraid, all right, so normally I would want to run and hide. All right, so what's the brave thing to do? And just kind of work through that in a self-healing kind of process.
Yeah, take that same level of energy that you feel when you're fearful
or angst, or
angst, or
just
yes, what like call it what you will.
crippling paralysis.
It all has a root in fear,
Sure.
really, realistically. And then use that energy, that excitement that you feel inside when you're fearful, and channel it toward a positive way. And then your brain becomes more familiar with feeling fear in a positive way.
So how does that, I get how that would work with, just people working on things on the inside. But when it comes to putting your best foot forward and stepping out into with a business or with a creative piece of work, how does that translate? Where do you, like, let's talk with Toastmasters. So doing the research for this, I found out the biggest fear people have, 75% of us, as a matter of fact, have a fear of public speaking. The most crazy thing I ever heard was that people would prefer to face death as opposed to getting behind. Now, I am not one that is afflicted with that. I am a big old ham, and I'll get up on a mic. I don't care how many people are up there. But how is it that people, being that fearful, how do you motivate them, other than what we just said, but how do you motivate them and get them ready to just go out there and attack the world?
Well, Toastmasters is a very interesting organization in that it is a non-for-profit, but it's based on education. It's all about educating people for leadership and for getting in front of an audience. And I was always taught, I used to figure skate years ago, and my coach would say to me, practice makes permanent. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. We have muscle memory. So the more people use Toastmasters as an opportunity to get in front of people and say what they need to say, whether it's a humorous speech or something they're passionate about, the more they do it, the more it becomes normal and it doesn't feel so fearful. That's, I think, one of the best benefits of Toastmasters.
And I would say to that point, one of the things I love about it is that it's a supportive environment. So I think the fear of public speaking is really the fear of being embarrassed in front of people. It's that, like, are they going to throw tomatoes at me? Are people going to boo me? Am I going to forget what I said? Am I going to have, my toilet paper hanging off my shoe? It could be any number of things, right?
Sure.
And at Toastmasters, you could have all of those things happen and everyone will just be like, there's room for improvement. Like the evaluation process, which is a key part of the actual meeting. There's 3 speakers and then there's 3 evaluators. And so the evaluator will come up and they will tell you all the things you did right. You did great making nice eye contact. You moved away from the podium. You didn't do that last time. Some of the things that you might try this next time might be using more vocal variety. It might be adding in a little bit of humor, but it's never derogatory. Like, you were so stiff and so boring, I barely stood awake, So no one would say that.
That's some great feedback.
Right, yeah. So they never come back to the meeting. So I think that's the good part, is we know in that safe space of the meeting that you can face your fear and you don't have to worry that someone's going to ridicule you. They're going to give you something constructive to work on and they're going to compliment you on the things you did well. And isn't that what we really want in life, to get better, is people around us who are going to say, you're great, and here's something you could do next time that's going to make it even better.
Yeah, I think that, that's a really good point. And there needs to be a good delivery. So many things are really good information, but if you deliver them wrong, no one's going to receive them, or they're going to receive them and they're going to be mad at you and never talk to you again. So yeah, that's it. I think it's very important to want to get better. You've got to have that desire. I don't think you would be at Toastmasters hopefully you wouldn't go to Toastmasters to not get better.
Right.
Or maybe to just feel better about, I'm way better than that person. Don't do that. Go in there and be part of the team and collaborate and get better together.
Yeah.
So why do people seek out Toastmasters? Is it for just one specific thing, or do you find people from all different walks of life?
Well, I was invited by a friend to go to Toastmasters, and she actually has a podcast and is working on her public speaking. And I've been doing quite a bit of public speaking. And I actually were office from home. And I thought, what's a good place to get out and meet some people who are also interested in serving the community, who like to speak, who, people that have that inclination generally tend to be a little more, I guess I'll say, positive and interested in self-help and improvement. And so I thought, well, that sounds like an interesting thing to try out, because there's lots of different networking groups to try. And of course, I've been to a lot of them. But for me, it was more about the core message is, how can you improve your ability to lead others and make the world a better place through your speaking, through your leadership skills, how you give feedback. All of those components that are baked into the meeting are just skills that, like you said, we get to learn how to give constructive feedback, how to receive feedback without getting defensive or feeling rejected. And I think, to me, that's part of the appeal, is that it's just kind of a fun hour once a week. Would you say? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, especially, I will say, I've been involved in several clubs over the years. And to answer your initial question, I had a very specific reason for joining Toastmasters. This was back in Nashville, Tennessee, many years ago. My dad used to tease me because I said so much. He would actually call me just like to be cute. And he wasn't a mean person at all. Right. But he would be, I would be on the phone with him and he would say, and I'd say, okay, Dad, I get it. I spoke to a coworker at my office in Nashville and said, oh, my dad just called me again. And he said, you know what you need? You need to go to Toastmasters. And I said, what? What's Toastmasters? Isn't that a brand of a toaster? And it is. Toastmaster is.
It really is?
You should get sponsorship.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a perfect sponsorship opportunity right there.
So I went to a meeting, and one of the things that happens in a Toastmasters meeting is somebody counts your ums and your ahs and your
really?
no's. Oh, yes. So it makes you very aware of this thing that may trip you up in public speaking experiences. That was the original reason I went. Now I've been a member of several clubs. It's an international organization. So there are literally clubs in every city, probably, 4 or 5 in nearly every city in the world. And the club that we're in now, and April and I are both very active in this club, is the Naples Sunrise Bay Toastmasters. Mm-hmm. I will say, I love all the other clubs I was in, but this club, you know how they say, if you want to fly like an eagle, don't hang around turkeys, right?
I've not heard that, but that makes a lot of sense.
So I will say this club in particular is very fun, to April's point, because you are surrounded by eagles. There are some really heavy hitter business people in our club. And so I have a good friend, the president of our club, Ann Hagen, says after this meeting, she feels like she was shot out of a cannon to face the rest of her week. And that's exactly how it feels to me. It's just you're around some people that are very educated, very good at what they do in their careers, and they're terrified to get up there and speak. And they'll be the first ones to tell you that. So it just feels like you're in good company and you're raising the level of people that you're spending time with early on a Tuesday morning. And it does feel like you're shot out of a cannon in the best possible way.
That's a good point. Best possible way. Yeah. Well, that's really a very interesting point. You definitely want to, hopefully, because you always hear people saying, I just want to get to that next level. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you do that?
Yes.
Well, first you have to surround yourself with the right people. My mom always used to tell me, don't hang out with those kids. Don't hang out with the bad kids because they're just going to bring you down.
That's right.
So, and it's the same in business. Don't hang out with the people that are not leveling up and you don't see them improve. Now, sometimes through no fault of their own, business people or individuals or nonprofits or what have you, they may hit a lull and you need to be there to pick them up. But I don't think that's what you were saying at all. I think, but it is important that you surround yourself with people that are where you want to be. We all see. Now I'm going to be self-conscious to say.
I'm keeping a tabulation over here. Don't worry.
Could you please not have the calendar
give you the
over
report
there?
After.
I may break it by the end of the day. But there are people out there that can be detractors And normally you find those people in a negative headspace. And so, but by doing what you guys are doing, which is being active and actively seeking other people that could bring you up to where you want to be, I mean, that's a really positive way to handle that circumstance. And I think some people get stuck, the analysis or paralysis by analysis kind of thing. It's like, well, where do I start? And oh, I don't want to go there because that's that just makes me nervous, and I don't know what I don't know, so I'm just going to sit here and hope that something changes. So, well, man, this has been great so far. So now I'm going to dig in a little deeper here, and I just have some questions about what brought you guys to this.
It's a good question. Well, for me, it was
Okay, so
meaning Toastmasters. And April and I actually go back quite far. We were in a mom's group together when our children were babies.
We're now 20.
Yeah. So our babies are now in their, I've got one 22-year-old and one 17, almost 18-year-old. And we kind of hit it off like early on and had a group of moms that we spent time with. And, at that season of life, you're very focused on your family and, being the best mother you can be. And even if you had a really high level career prior, your family becomes everything to you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really encourage young families when they have small children, yes, just surround yourself with every experience you can to nurture your kids, to nurture yourself, and be the best parent you can be, because you only get that season once.
Yeah.
But then when the time comes for you to get back into the workforce, had you been in the workforce before, or maybe not, you said you were always a stay-at-home mom.
I had kids young.
Yeah. So you face this new challenge or a renewed challenge, depending on what you came from. And it's a little terrifying because you became very good at being a parent. But then now there's this new you almost that you're recreating outside of your parenthood, which is always, incredibly important, but you're creating a new identity almost, and you're starting a fresh chapter in your life. For me, that's why I went back to Toastmasters, because I was actually facing the world as a newly single mom after a divorce. And I had to find my grounding again in the business community and meet people and get out there and start to feel confident. So that's why I rejoined Toastmasters after having been in it in my 20s back in Nashville. That's how I found this club.
Wow.
Well, and Toastmasters actually brought us back together. So we had been friends when our kids were little, and then kids go to different schools and schedules get busy. And I think it was a Monday night meeting. We were both in. I was demoing a workshop that I was giving with a few other Toastmasters for this convention that was coming up. And Amy walked in, I looked at her, and it was one of those like, I know that person. I know that person. Where do I know that person? And we were both going through our brain. I was like, you're a singer, right? And then we pieced it together like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, it's amazing how, in this town, if you stick around for a while, you'll see people and your paths will cross again. And one thing to your point about the turkeys that I thought was so good is, and I say this to my kids, like, if you want to know who you are, look at who you're surrounded with. Because if you believe in like the law of attraction or like attracts like, you're attracting to yourself the things, the people, the situations that are in vibrational alignment, not to get too spooky or anything, with who you are. And so if the people around you are liars, or if they're not good business people, or they're not improving themselves, then rather than saying, oh, these people around me aren't really good, say, what am I doing to attract that? And what do I need to do to improve? And so I think that's one of the great things with Toastmasters is you get to be around the people who are in the zone of improvement, because people aren't going to show up there if they're not looking for that. And so that's one of the things I love about it is you can't just hide in the corner in Toastmasters. There's no such thing
no one will let you.
as coming in and out and not saying something or being up at the podium almost weekly, every other week. So yeah, there's no hiding.
There's no hiding.
Well, and you're right. You do attract what you focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really tough question. The toughest questions that we ask are the ones that we have to ask and answer for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it's a learning process. We go through it all throughout life, and that's why you never can be done learning, because if you are, then what good are you doing what good are you doing yourself, and what good are you doing the rest of society?
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully you have some more altruistic things that you want to accomplish with your life.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you decided, what were you doing? Were you always working on publishing? Was that always a dream, or did you discover that through Toastmasters? Or I know you worked with as a coach. I know you worked with a lot of different people in a lot of different businesses. How did you get to publishing from that point?
Interestingly enough, it was totally out of the blue. I give a talk now quite often called "The Book Opens Doors," and so I really believe that, to your first point about valuing your voice and your story and knowing that it matters and it's worth putting out there, part of the magic of that is when you put a book out there, lots of things can happen you would never expect. And so when I wrote my first book in 2012, I was a life coach. My kids were younger. I ended up teaching some online courses and some in-person courses that led me to do some conferences. I did one at the Hyatt, I did one at Hodges. And so I continued to build on those skills, and I continued to write and publish. And over time, I had some friends that asked me if I could help them publish a book. Like, how was I doing it? And I never had thought of that, like that skill I taught myself to do the things I was doing would be valuable to others, because I didn't find it to be that difficult. I don't know. And I think sometimes the things that we're good at, we don't find difficult. Like, Amy's a singer. If someone gave me a mic and said, "Can I sing for you?" You would not want to be there, probably. But for Amy, I'm sure at this point it's pretty easy and it's something you enjoy. I don't know, but I'm putting songs in your mouth. But so for me, that began the process of O'Leary Publishing, was this question of, could I use this skill to help somebody else? And so I tried it out, and then someone else asked me, and then someone else, and I just started building my team of professionals. Like, my head editor I was introduced to in the summer of 2019, and that was after I'd published a couple books for others. She's been with me for the last 5 years, and we've published over 40 titles now. So, we've just continued to develop our systems and our team and who we're reaching and all of that. And so that was a really unexpected new business for me that came, if I trace it all the way back to me writing my first book. So I always say that to our authors is, you never know what could happen. I always give them a challenge, like, take a blank piece of paper and imagine all the great, amazing things that could happen when your book publishes, and then put it away and come back in a year or two and look at that list, and there will be things that happen that you could never have put on that list. So it's kind of a cool process to be able to help people do that, and for them to put out something that will be a seed for new and different things.
Yeah. So do you just work with people that want to be authors, are already authors? Or what I was reading on your website, it seemed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like if you have a story, come to us and let us talk through that, and let's put that story in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes. So we are, as an independent publisher, we have defined our genre, as mostly nonfiction. We have a couple fiction books, but we really want to help people tell their stories. The issue that I found once I got into owning a publishing company was, I have skills in writing. Mapping out a book wasn't difficult for me when I did it multiple times over. And so I kind of took that process for granted, that everybody would know how to do that. And I kept hearing over and over the stories people had, but I don't know where to start. I try to start and I look at the blank screen and I don't know what to say, or I write things and then I lose steam. And so we created this process called book mapping, where Heather, my editor, and I will meet with someone for a few hours. We listen to everything. And by the end of that, we put together an entire book map. It's their table of contents, their back cover copy, sample titles and subtitles, and who is your reader, and what is the specific sub genre. Like, so for example, if you were self-help, what are the subcategories of self-help that your book would fall under? And what are the titles that are already selling in that? And so we really do, like what Amy was talking about, you have to know who the audience is. It's not just, I just want to tell a story because it's my story. It's, you can do that, but if you really keep your eye on who is the reader and what do they want and how can my experience help them, then I think your book has a much better chance of being successful. So we can take people from idea to editing to design to book launch. So they don't have to, like a traditional publisher, you would need to get a literary agent and have a book proposal and have your manuscript written. And all of that is assumed you're going to do that on your own or hire your own editor. But we kind of do it all in our own way. So it's been fun. It helps people that normally wouldn't be able to write a book on their own.
So you've taken away a lot of the barriers of entry.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of this mystic thing that,
Yeah.
you know, oh, I'm an author. I mean, I'm in awe of people that have written books because how did you do that? Oh, and you're a successful author. You're not just an author, you know, you're actually successful. I mean, there's all this mystery that surrounds it, just like doing a TV show. Just, you know, that's something that, like you, I take for granted. Sometimes I just assume people know this stuff, but I've been doing it 25 years.
Yeah.
You know, so there are things that I know that other people don't, that I can help them with. So is that some kind of the way that things worked out for you with your marketing side?
Yes. An attitude of service to help people get their voice out there. And if they have a company that they're launching or a company, like I said, that they're rebranding, to get them to the point where they feel very confident about what they're selling. That's my job. That's what helps me wake up in the morning, is helping somebody feel empowered and like they've really owned their brand, they've really owned their product offering, and we're going to position them in the best possible way to move forward to be successful. And I think that speaking and authorship and being an entrepreneur or having a business all fall in the line of being in front of an audience and performing to a degree. You're communicating to an audience, and you hope that how you're communicating resonates with that audience, whether it's through a book, whether it's through the speaking circuit, whether it's through your business communications, what have you. And I think authorship and Toastmasters especially goes hand in hand, because part of being a successful author is getting on the road and talking. It's really, it's not about the book as much as it is about the burning thing inside of you that you're dying to share with others because it's going to serve them. And that's, I think, the tie-in to a not-for-profit like Toastmasters, where it's extremely affordable. I don't know any other tool building or skill building tool out there that is as affordable as Toastmasters for what you get in return.
Yeah, doesn't it equal what $10 a month?
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
It's really
because, like,
ridiculously inexpensive.
And this sounds like a commercial for Toastmasters.
Yeah,
It kind of is. I mean,
well, I mean, if it's done that much good for you and for the people that you've worked with, I mean, and it's really low barrier to entry. I mean, why wouldn't you at least? And I read on the website, it said that you can come visit for free.
You can.
Right?
Well, in the work you do with video, I would say that if someone hasn't really polished their speaking skills, their videos aren't going to be that great. Maybe I'm making an assumption. Maybe I'm making a lot of assumptions.
We have a lot of teleprompters and people that work on the teleprompter, and we make people look good and sound good with those teleprompters. But I will tell you that when people have put everything to memory, or they've been out there in public speaking, they are able to get through it a lot quicker. Typically, it takes 5 times reading it on a teleprompter to get it to where you at least sound natural. But if you have actually done this on a regular basis, say every Tuesday, really early in the morning, then it's not going to take you that long. It'll take you maybe 1 or 2 times. And we always want to do several takes because we want people to feel like what they're presenting is organic, and it's not this practice pitch like these people that do debates or these people that are up in front of, and you can tell they're polished, but the sincerity's not there.
Mm.
And I
Mhm.
think that that's probably, I know it's really important what you say, but how you say it has a really significant part of that puzzle that may be missing, because you may have the best brand and the best product and the best service in the world. But if you don't know how to present that in the right way and in an actual sincere way, then you're going to miss out.
Mhm.
Well, the common denominator to all of that is people. And
Mm.
people want to be communicated with and acknowledged and understood and accepted. And that's really the bottom line. It doesn't matter if you're selling widgets or services or publishing books. It's really about people, and people want to be understood. And so you give them an opportunity to speak in a public forum or write a book or present their business in the best positive light. They feel, they can get out there and find the people who do accept them and do want what they're pitching. And it's all very organic. It has to be in order for it to be successful, I think. And one of the things I love about our Toastmasters Club in particular is we have an accelerator concept. You can come to the meeting and just speak. And we do have some people that they're not trying to achieve anything high level. They just really enjoy the meetings. They want to practice their skills. They're not trying to achieve anything in particular. But we have many people in our club that are being invited to speak at major organization meetings or what have you. So we have this accelerator concept where if you have a 40-minute presentation that you're practicing and you are preparing for, and you've got 2 months to prepare, you can do that speech at our club, get feedback to understand how you could improve it, and have the opportunity to practice in front of a very friendly audience so that you can use that in your profession. Whereas some Toastmasters clubs, and this is no, offense to them at all, there's only like a short prepared speech period, but we're giving people the opportunity to actually use this platform as a way to practice something they're going to use in real life. And that's been very valuable. And we've learned a lot. We get some, we've got one of our members is a aesthetic injector. She knows all about injectables, and she's getting ready to speak at this huge conference about the world of injectables. So she practiced her speech. And I got to tell you, it was very interesting. We have another member who is a very successful retail business owner who spoke at a big retail convention for her niche in retail. And she used our club as an opportunity to practice her speech. And both of them were so grateful that they had the opportunity to practice before they actually had to go out on that big stage in front of all those people.
Well, and practice, like you said, makes permanent. We actually work with a client that we have done videos for, I think, for the last 6 years now. They're a surgical veterinarian firm all over the country, and they actually print up bones and use their apparatus to practice on. So even these surgeons, they want the practice to be better. So they started taking X-rays and these pictures of the actual dog that they would be working on, and they print this bone up with tendons and everything, and they practice on that. So that would be something that I think if these guys at that high of a level are doing it and it makes them better, and they're not ashamed to say, oh yeah, I practiced this 100 times before because I want to get it right. That's something that people should take that much pride, especially when you're going to go speak with people, because everyone that you're going to speak to and with and in front of are giving you something that is the most valuable commodity that they have, which is their time. And so you really have to be considerate of their time. And that's, I think I need to go to Toastmasters because Hope and I both speak at quite a few different events every year. And we want to do more of that. We also want to teach people. But that's a really good, I think, incubator for people to really work through processes, right?
That's a really good word for it. And there is zero barrier to entry. You can come and visit. You may get called on to speak as a visitor because we have one section of the meeting called Table Topics.
Mhm.
And the person who's the table topics master has prepared, what's the word I want? Like a starter
Like
thought process,
questions,
like
yeah.
questions or a starter thought process. And then the table topics speakers come up and speak on the fly. There's no opportunity to prepare whatsoever. And the guests are often called on because we want to hear from the guests, and they get a couple minutes to speak on a topic that they were not prepared for whatsoever.
It's something general though. It's not like,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
not-
it's
yeah.
not like what's your favorite,
Yeah.
you know, battle in history or something.
Right.
Yeah. They're
It's
low
more
I need a
about, like,
six-part
you know, what's-
dissertation.
Yeah, exactly. It's more
It's
about
fun.
your
It's actually fun.
yeah.
Like, what's your favorite food and why? You know, simple things.
Okay.
If you were a tree, what kind of tree
someone
would you
did
be?
recently. Are you a cat person or a dog person
Mhm.
or not animals at all, and why? You know, so things like that where it's kind of funny. You can lace in some humor if you want. Most people have an opinion, but there's not a right or wrong opinion, and so I think that's where we kind of try to keep it fun and friendly.
Well, and that really, hopefully, it sets them at ease a little bit
Yeah.
and lets their guard down a little
Mhm.
bit to get to know other people. And it's not just them up there and everybody staring at them. That's going to happen to everybody that comes. So how do you think that affects the greater good? I really want to delve into when you help people, whatever it is that you're helping them with. And you guys, you're helping with books, you're helping with marketing, you're helping with practice speech, presentations. How does that really participate and help in, pushing the greater good forward?
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things for us that's been our highest value as a company is giving people a high touch publishing experience. So we talk a lot about the adventure, the author adventure. So where you would spend money to go on a round trip, a worldwide cruise, for example, why would you spend the money to do that? Because you want to see new things or meet new people or try new food or go to new places. It's you get to a point in life where I think it's more about who you're with and what you're doing and are you having a good time. And so we want to make sure all of the interactions we have with our authors are positive. They come away feeling good, that they know exactly what they're doing and how we're supporting them. We're available to help. And I think that's been one of the differentiators for us is that we're not a high volume publishing company. You know, we publish about 20 titles a year. We're aiming to. We're at about 15 right now. And there's a lot of companies that charge way less than we do, but they're more automated. And so you're uploading your document into the cloud, and then an editor that is assigned to your project might edit your manuscript and send it back up in the cloud. So you don't get that high touch experience.
Sure.
And I think that when people are going through stories, like some of our authors, we had a mother-daughter team who did a book together about a traumatic brain injury. Her daughter was hit by a car, and they went through a lot to really understand what had happened and why her invisible injury was so traumatic, but nobody could see it.
Mhm.
And so all of the pain that they went through, not just in the girl Paige who was hit by the car, but the mother, you know, in the caretaking experience, you know, we know as parents, we would take any pain away from our kid if we could.
Absolutely.
And so if you're looking at your daughter suffering and you don't have the tools and the doctors don't know, and you have to go all these different routes to try to find things that work, and then you find some solutions, they wanted to pay that story forward and help others. And so when you're dealing with clients who have gone through a lot, for us, the greater good is, how can we help you bring this story out to help the most people? What is the things that they need to do? And being very sensitive, because it's sensitive. It's a sensitive topic. It's a traumatic story for them. And yet now they're blossoming. I just saw the other day, it's Roberta and Paige, and the book is called She Looks Fine. They just tagged me on a LinkedIn post. They're keynote speaking at an event for brain surgeons or something like that. And so their book opened doors for them to be able
Wow.
to talk about their experience going through a traumatic brain injury. And so that's like a really cool thing that now together they're getting to do. And I think that is something that they wouldn't have written down on their paper had I said, write down
Sure.
the opportunities, but they're paying it forward in the greater good to the medical community. And I think as lay people, as they are, that's a really cool experience for them, and it helps the doctors become better at what they're doing and the patients they're serving. So that's just one of many stories that we have, but I think that's where we really try to see the good and honor the bad. And it's not always about just all the highs in life. It's most of our authors have been through something really dark or hard, and now they've come out on the other side and they want to do something about it to help others. And so how can we bring that out with the most respect and have fun along the way?
Good answer.
Thank you.
Amy, what about you?
Well, I'm curious how you define the greater good. I'm going to turn the table.
Oh, wow. Wow. I was not prepared. The greater
It's your
good.
table topic.
No, that's right. Oh, see.
I'm going to count the ums. I've got my pencil here.
We are approaching dangerous territory here. Let me just fly off. Well, for me, the greater good is to leave it better than you found it. There's one. And I'm a huge fan, and I was sharing this with you guys earlier. I was and still am a huge fan of Fred Rogers, and other people know him as Mr. Rogers growing up. And I've read his books, and thankfully my wife listens to me where sometimes I'm not always the best listener, but she got his biography for me for Christmas, and it's just fascinating. And his speeches that he gave, and when he testified I think it was in front of Congress, and he was talking about the need for public television and public education, it blew me away. His desire and his heart was so huge, and he just wanted to help the kids live better lives and understand how to interact with other people better. He was the Jiminy Cricket in real life. He was the conscience. He was the person that I think made me look at things in an empathetic way that I hope that I get better at every single day, because A, I'm not promised tomorrow. B, I want to be able to make people as good as other people make me feel when they give to me, when they don't have to. And we have been so blessed. C, I just love seeing eyes light up and smiles get really big when people accept gifts from others that they just would never have thought that someone would have given them that. And that can be any number of things. I don't mean monetary gifts. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's just praising them for something that they did. Saying, man, that was really good. So many times a kind word turneth away wrath. But so many people don't get to hear even a kind word sometimes. And if we are in a circumstance that there are people out there that we live in a really, I don't know, we live we're living a life that is just blessed, and we don't always consider the other side of things because we don't have to see it every day. So the greater good for me is just kindness and paying it forward and loving on someone and giving them a hug or helping them where you're not going to get anything in return, but you hope that it affects them or the future or society as a whole. I know those are delusions of grandeur in my own mind, but I hope that, and it's amazing, the smallest thing, I think it's the smallest thing out there can make the difference in someone's life. The biggest difference by doing something really small, it can really affect another person to, I don't know, not kill themselves or step out and save someone else, step out of themselves and go, okay, I don't matter as much as this circumstance right here. And I need to talk this person off the ledge, literally or figuratively. That was a really roundabout way of saying kindness.
I can feel your energy over here.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, so I have a similar definition of greater good in that it really is about unifying people And there's enough negativity in the world. We all know this. And that negativity is going to continue as long as we exist on this earth. That's just part of our makeup. And the people who are willing and able to get out there and share a positive message that unifies people or helps them, empowers them to say what they need to say is always for the greater good. I don't see any negativity in the term the greater good. Sure, we have negative experiences, and those things we're always going to be facing negative experiences in our life because that's the nature of existence. But it's taking those negative things or positive things and imparting them to others to unify. To me, that's the greater good. And whether that means, again, singing a song that just moves an audience, or having a book that educates others on how to move past a circumstance in their life, or having a podcast that really encourages positivity, not in a woo-woo way, but in a way that's real and unifies people. To me, that is the greater good. And as long as we are focusing on how to unify others, I don't see anything bad about that.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing these days is God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should listen twice as much as we talk. But we should be active listeners, but we should really listen and consider, and we don't have to respond right away. We should just listen and absorb. And if we were able to do that, we could really see the other side of people's opinions. And I think that would bring us together. I hope, I pray that we can still, I pray that the majority of us value each other so much that we could actually come together. And I pray that our country comes together every day. And I want that. I want us to have an educated discussion, and it's okay to have a heated discussion. Hopefully, tempers don't flare and things like that. But if you're not listening, you miss so much of what the other person's saying. And I am guilty of this when I was younger, last week.
Me too.
Right? Sometimes you get so caught up in wanting to respond, and not necessarily so that you're heard, but you really want to respond. You're not listening to everything that they're saying. And that's where you can miss. And that's where we do ourselves a disservice. And so I think, being able to unify people, it starts with being able to listen and listen intently, not listening so that you know how to rebut or respond, right?
I just read a great book, actually, not that I published. This book I wish I published this book. It's called Crucial Conversations. And it's all about having crucial conversations where there's emotions involved, there's differing of opinions, and how to go through listening and creating a safe container, they say, so that they talk a lot about it in a context of a business team. For example, if you have a boss that's very dictatorial, for example, and they get up there and they're asking people to give their opinions, everyone's afraid because they don't want to lose their job, or they don't want to rock the boat, or we're maybe more interested in trying to people please him and not be honest about what's really going on and why the organization's not producing what it should be or whatever. So it goes through a lot of the ways that we can add, like they talk about adding to the pool of meaning. Like the way that I see it is this: these are the facts I have. What are the facts you have? And then we're kind of putting it all into the middle so everyone can examine all the facts, and then we don't have to get upset. So it's leading with the facts rather than the opinions. And I think that's such a hard thing, because going into a lot of these kinds of hot conversations is the emotions lead first. And it's like, let's not talk about the facts, and let's not discover where I'm even getting my emotions all riled up is based on stuff that you don't even know about. So, I don't know if it got off on that. If you want to cut that out.
No, I'm going to edit half of what I said today. No.
I just think it's such, to your point of getting to a unified version of our country today. It's just, I think it's such a hard thing because it's the emotions rather than the facts. And I think that the listening is so small and the voices are so loud. And I think
All the
that
voices.
that trickles down into how we deal with our kids even, or our spouse. And it's difficult. I'll admit, like, it's very difficult because I want to be right and I want to have the last word and I want to talk over you and get my point in. And that's not always the best strategy.
And it is a strategy. It absolutely is. But it's inherent. It's an innate response, and it's built into our DNA sometimes. It's some more than others, unfortunately or fortunately. Well, I'll tell you, and something that I read on your website actually that made me excited to even more so to have this conversation with you today is the way that you guys write. The verbiage that you use on your website is fantastic. And when you have an adventure quiz for people to take, and adventure is my favorite word because my favorite movie is The Goonies, and it always will be
movie.
Because it takes me back to being a 12-year-old kid, and I love that, and I love that adventure, and that's one of my favorite things. So the way that you guys write on the website is just, wow. It's like I'm getting ready to start an adventure.
Yeah.
And so kudos to whoever did that on your site. Tell me a little bit about the adventure quiz for your authors.
Well, the adventure quiz is really about what do you want out of your book writing experience. So it takes you through the process of, is this a personal adventure or is it professional? Because we want to understand who you are. If it's a professional adventure, what are the things that are important to you about that? Is it that you want to elevate your voice in the marketplace? Is it that you want a better marketing tool? Is it that you want to do more public speaking? It's sort of one of those check all that apply so that we can understand the goals that you have with it. And we talk up, various things like that. So at the end of the quiz, you kind of understand what publishing is about. You understand your motives better and what would be a win for you. Because all of our authors have different wins. And that's one of the things I say in the beginning as well is, forget the time, forget the money, forget who's writing what, and how does editorial work, and who's going to pick the design, et cetera. But if your book is in your hand right now, what's your win? What are you doing with it? We've had some clients who have had very successful careers. And we had one author, he's done 2 books with us. His name's Dr. Don Fedor. And he was a organizational psychologist. He had a book, he was published by Stanford Press in 2009 in his field. And he was a professor at Georgia Tech. And meanwhile, he had all this spiritual stuff going on. He was going to these spiritual workshops and doing a lot of meditation and all kinds of stuff that in the academic world, you sort of keep locked in the closet. So once he retired and closed his LinkedIn profile, he kind of came out of the closet with all of this knowledge that he had gained over decades. And now he has spoken on our stage twice at 2 of our author speaker events we do in the spring called Book Naples. But he's at the point in life where he kayaks, he's a biker, like riding a bike, miles, like hundreds of miles, like that kind of biking. And he doesn't want to go on a speaking tour. He's made his money. He's had his success, but he wants to put out something that means something to him and to the spiritual groups that he's a part of. So for us, it's important to know that. And so that's part of his adventure. Whereas, other people have other outcomes that are important to them. So that's really about the adventure. It's like working with a travel agent. Do you want to go to Africa on a safari? Do you want to go to France and see the Eiffel Tower? Are you wanting to just go to the mountains in North Carolina? I have to understand what it is. So yeah, I love talking about adventure. It's my favorite thing too.
Yeah. I mean, life's supposed to be an adventure, and that's, why would you want to live any other story? Well, I mean, that's in my opinion, but I watch every Treasure Quest show there is. I'm on the History Channel all the time. I'm very boring, but it is an adventure to watch. I really love watching those shows. And the adventure, you choose your own adventure.
That's what it is. Yeah.
So it's up to you. If you want to not have an adventure, that's okay. You can have an adventure on your couch.
Yes.
So what is the best way now, I do want to talk to you about your podcast, and I will ask you that. What's the best way that people can get in touch with you? And what would you, is your ideal avatar client, what are they seeking, and how would they get in touch with you?
In the marketing world?
Marketing world, Toastmasters, whatever
Yeah.
you'd like to speak about. Yeah.
Well, April brought up something really critical, and it's something you alluded to too, is seeking to understand. That is a principle that I think if more people made that part of their core values, to seek to understand others and not judge. And it's that pool of meaning. I do love that book, Crucial Conversations. Also, it's an excellent book, highly recommended. The pool of meaning is all about learning to understand the other person's point of view, also putting in your point of view into the pool of meaning, but not before the other people that you're speaking to have the opportunity to do the same. And I operate in the same way. My initial phone call, so on my website, which is amybrightcreative.com, that's how they would get in touch with me to answer that question, is a discovery call. My job during this discovery call, much like the quiz that April has, is just to listen. I do practice the seek to understand, because an ideal client for me could be in any field. I'm not necessarily, looking for any particular industry to serve, although I do tend to get health and wellness clients, probably because I love health and wellness. So I draw those people out to me.
That's right.
And I just try to understand what they're trying to achieve. And there's no cookie cutter solution. No client has the same needs. So my job is to really listen. I guess my ideal client is somebody who has a burning passion to put their product or their service out there. And they're not just looking for a paycheck. They're not just looking to make money. They really want to serve others.
Sure.
And my whole premise of my business is quality people serving quality people.
I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. That's at the end of the day, you hope that you're serving good people doing good things, and service above self. I mean, that's really kind of the whole point, right?
Mhm.
Hopefully,
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah.
I want to make others look good.
Yeah.
And feel confident to put their product or their service out there in the best light.
I think that's very noble.
Mhm.
Definitely. Miss April, how do people get in touch with you? Where would they go?
They can go to o'learypublishing.com and take the author adventure quiz if they're interested in writing a book or think they might be. I would say it's worth taking it just to try it out, see what you think. And most people, I always say, if you're on your deathbed someday, which we never like to think about, but what are those bucket list items that you would say, oh, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have, gone to Africa. I wish I would have fill in the blank. But I think for a lot of people, it's, I wish I would have told my story or written that book that for so many years people said, you should write a book. And it's one of those things that it's easy to put off and not do. And don't wait until it's too late. So,
well, and I think so many people don't know where to start with that,
Mhm.
but you have a quiz that can show them where to start.
We have a quiz. And then at the end of the quiz, and it's not a spoiler alert, but there is a coupon for a discount on our publishing consultation. So they can speak with me about more specifically if the quiz didn't give you enough direction or you don't feel like So yeah, there's an incentive at the end.
Now the I'm book. Oh, did you
I was
have
just
something?
going to say, as far as Toastmasters is concerned, no
Mhm.
matter where someone is listening to this or watching this podcast, they can go to toastmasters.org. That's the international website.
Okay.
And there's an area to find a club near you.
Mhm.
And I would begin there.
And they're all over,
They're
right?
all
Everywhere.
over the world.
Okay.
And, there are many clubs in Southwest Florida. And like I said, there's many clubs in many places. Try the one that fits you the best.
And it's kind of neat because, like we were saying, the various experiences people have in Toastmasters, if you want to just become better at running your boardroom table, that's great. If you want to start competing, they have club competitions, which lead to area competitions, which lead to district. So you can become like the world's champion Toastmaster speaker. And so there's a lot of fun to be had if you are really wanting to challenge yourself and get out there and meet new people. And they have lots of great opportunities like that, which is, I think, one of the benefits of it being an international organization. They just had their world conference in the Bahamas this month, I believe.
Mhm.
And so
Nice.
the people who have risen up the ranks of their public speaking would be giving their presentations, and it's pretty neat.
So it's way more than just a group of people getting together and
Oh, yeah.
helping
Oh, yeah.
with one aspect. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do from this.
Yeah.
Yes. And their tagline is where leaders are made.
Nice.
It's really about empowering people for leadership more so than just speaking.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
where
okay.
it begins. But yeah.
It is where it begins. So,
Mhm.
and you have to lead yourself. Yeah. Hopefully lead your family. And yeah, it's a very important lesson to learn. And really, hopefully some of us or most of us would aspire to be good leaders. I would hope. I aspire to do that.
I think we're all leaders. Everybody is a leader in some capacity of their life, whether they're the president of a board or a parent or a sibling. Everyone is looking to somebody else for examples. So I think we're all in a leadership position. It's just a matter of, are you interested in growing your leadership capacity? And Toastmasters is a great place to start.
It sounds like it.
Mhm.
I'm definitely going to check that out. He was telling me, I'm pointing to Dorian, who's off camera, but he's been telling me that I should do that for a long time. So I actually have to say he's right. No, he's right all the time. So I'm Book Podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the I'm Book podcast. We had, I had the idea in 2020 for our 1-year anniversary of O'Leary Publishing. We started in 2019. I thought, most of our authors want to be speakers and they want to grow their platform and get better. And I thought, well, why don't I start a podcast? And that's a way to give my authors a chance to speak on a podcast. Because a lot of times, if you want to be on other podcasts, it's like, well, can you show me an example of what you did before? And if you have nothing, I thought, well, I'll be their first rodeo.
Mhm.
And once their book launches, they can be on the podcast. And so now we have 70 episodes.
Wow.
And 71 and 72 are in the, what would you call that? They're ready to go.
They're in the can.
They're in the can.
Yes.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. And so we, our podcast is specific for authors, publishers. We've had literary agents, people that kind of circular around the publishing industry, because it's really to not only give a chance for authors to have a chance to be on a podcast, but it's a chance for others who are thinking about publishing a book to understand the opportunities that are available. We're an independent publisher, and so there's lots of other ways to get published, whether you just totally do it yourself and you're self-publisher, all the way up to traditional like a Harper One or Penguin. There's a route for everybody, and I think that's one of the things that is not well understood. It's that there's either I have to do it myself and figure it all out, and that's so confusing, so I never do anything, or how am I going to be a New York Times bestseller and get to the top of the chain? And there's so many steps in between and so many options. So we talk about that a lot on the podcast too. So it's really to build that courage, like we were talking about earlier, for somebody to just say, I think I could do this. I think I've got a story and it matters. And if this person did it, I could do it. So that's what we do.
Well, and the most important step is to take that first step and reach out. And where would they hear the podcast?
So
Is it on
the
your
podcast,
website?
on the website, if you just go to o'learypublishing.com, select podcast on the navigation bar, and you'll be able to see there's an embedded player in there, but it also leads you to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. And if you're listening and you are an author or you're part of a publishing network in some way, you can actually book to be on the show. There's a Calendly on the bottom there. So someone can book themselves as a guest.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys' time today. This has been fantastic. This has
so
been
fun. Thank you for having us.
Great
Well,
way to
I'm glad you
start the
had fun.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yes. It's always a good start to the week. I love doing this on Friday because it's like, oh, well, I get to really look forward to Friday because I really enjoy doing this. So the question we ask everybody, and mainly, I guess we probably do this because we want to put this out there in the world. If money wasn't an object and you could accomplish anything that you wanted to accomplish for the greater good, what would you hope that would change in the world for the greater good?
That's a good table topic.
It is.
That
That's
would be
deep.
that would be a stumper.
Yeah, it's
that would
it's
be
tough.
like,
There's so
ooh,
much.
ma.
I would say inspiring people to accept others and love others and serve others. And I know that sounds very Pollyanna, a little bit, beauty pageant answer, but truly, if we could all learn to accept the other person, not yuck their yum, not judge their platform, not judge their message, and just let them be, let them put their information into the pool of meaning. We don't have to pick it up and own it. We just have to observe it and say, oh, I see. And maybe that's not a road I want to go down, but to accept and understand, I think, is the great challenge of existence.
It's a very good point.
Well, if money was no object, it's funny. I was thinking more tangible. I was like, do you buy, like, it's like Oprah, like, and you get a car and you get a car and you get a car.
Sure.
It's like, what would I do if I just had unlimited funds? And, I really admire the Bill and Melinda Gates because of all the money that they've contributed towards. I know they partner with Rotary and they've tried to eradicate polio, and they've been using their money for just really doing large scale projects that impact the global community. And I think that would be where I would focus on trying to decide where the best or the most need is and how to make a biggest impact. So I wish I had the answer to that. Like, I don't know exactly what that is. It would seem to be obvious, like kids that are suffering somewhere in the world, and how do you help them to have the opportunities that our kids have? And then that goes back to, well, maybe there's government instability, or there's, all kinds of, like, the problems in the world are so, I always use the word spider web. Like, how do you untangle the spider web?
Right. Yeah.
And so I don't know necessarily that money is always the answer to that. I think that ideology is something that's really hard to change. But if there was a way to do that so that people had more a focus on acceptance, freedom, human rights, and all of that.
Freedom.
So I know that's a really it's a big question. It's a big question, and there's no clear answers, but it's
your answers are both great. And the reason we ask that question is because we want to put that out there in the world to let people know that most people want to affect the greater good in whatever way they possibly can. And we want to put that positivity out there. And we want to continue to share that, and we want people to share that. And so we want you to share that. And hopefully today's show has inspired you. Hopefully it has given you some resilience for whatever you may be facing. Hopefully it's given you hope. And that's one thing that we want to provide more than anything is hope. And I have a full serving of hope every day because my wife's name is Hope Daily. So there you have it.
That's such a great name.
So yes, and she is awesome, and she's one of the best parts of my life. And so yes, having Hope Daily, we want to put hope out there in your spirit, and hopefully in your everyday life. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom, and we're grateful for it. And so if you would like to learn more, you can do that. Go to guerrillamedia.tv, and there's a tab at the top of the screen, and it says The Greater Good. Just click on that. You'll see recent episodes. You'll find out more about the show. You'll find out how to contact us. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, all the socials. we're there. And then we're also, we're in the process of being on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Pandora, Facebook, LinkedIn, and a partridge in a pear tree. Yeah. We are going to, if there's a place for us, we're going to be there. So, but if you do want to call us directly, you can by dialing 239-450-5357. And we would love to share how you put service above self and the effect that you're making on the greater good. And so thanks to Tim and Diana again at Studio 239 here in the shops at Vanderbilt. Wallace Entertainment, our sponsor. Guerilla Media, our sponsor. And I just have one last question for you. I'll leave you with this. How are you going to affect the greater good today? whatever it is that you do, leave it better than you found it.